Huntcrafted competition call build from BearKraft Game Calls. Today I'm going to walk you through the steps that I go through whenever I'm building a custom call. So we'll start from the planning all the way through to the very end with finishing, decoration, fluting the call, laminations. We're going to do all of it. If you haven't watched the video of the unboxing of the materials for the Huntcrafted competition, you can go to the link under this video, watch that one first. You'll understand all of the materials that have to be in the call, as well as the rules of the competition. That'll give you a little bit of an explanation of what this video is going to be about. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to get into today is we start the planning stages of working on this call. I'm going to go through all of the different materials that were supplied, show you what I'm going to add, and how I'm going to use everything. So the first part is this green and black dyed blank. This is going to be the main contrast or the main body of the call. This is what's going to give the call a lot of its character. And when I look at it here, I'm thinking I like this end of the blank a little bit better. It's got some darker stuff in it, a little bit more figure. So that's probably going to be what I use for the barrel of the call. I will go through what I'm going to do with the other end of it. I will cut from this end to do some of the work on the band, and I'll go into that design in a few minutes, but that'll be the first thing we start with. But this is going to be the basis of the call, and what I'm going to do is called an integral lamination, and I'll show you a picture of what that is right here. So this piece will be cut into several sections and laminated onto other pieces of wood or in between other pieces of wood to give accents and a little bit of contrast in the call. The next thing we have is a call blank, or it says a 3-inch call blank of coal mine from Beartooth Woods. I did a little bit of research. I said before it's kind of a plastic looking material. I wasn't real sure what it was. I did some more investigation and I found out they've got it listed on their website as acrylic acetate. I'm not a fan of acrylic or plastic like I mentioned before. This is going to be the basis of the band. I'll go into how I'm going to work on that in a few minutes. This is the African blackwood piece that's meant for sleeving. I will be using it. The only thing I've come up with so far is I probably will sleeve the tone board, use this piece. This is the white plastic spacer material. It gets laminated in between other things. When you want to do contrast like this, you use that plastic in between it to break it up a little bit, give it a little bit more of an accent. What I'm going to do, the base of this part of the call, or the barrel of the call, I'm actually going to add this piece of Burmese blackwood. It doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but you can see a little bit of the grain running through here. When you turn this, it goes almost black, but it's black with a lot of grain to it, so it's a wood that I really enjoy working with. This will be the base of the call. This will be laminated in between this part of it. Again, I'll show you that call, and as we work through it, you'll start to understand what we're doing here. I'm not going to use this in between the laminations between the green and the Burmese blackwood. I think I'm going to use aluminum, but I'm not positive yet. But I don't want to use the white. The white to me is kind of gaudy looking whenever you use a lot of pieces of it, and I don't want to do that to the call. So I'm going to use the white piece with the band and this plastic, and the rest of that idea will come out in just a few minutes. Anytime you use a burl wood, you're going to wind up with little voids. There's a little void right here. You can see that hole. Whenever you turn the call, you're going to reveal more of these holes like that, and they're going to be inconsistent. There's another one right here. It's going to be inconsistent. There's nothing you can do about it. It's part of using burl woods. This is a stabilized blank, so it's solid. There's no reason to worry about it falling apart or anything leaking or anything like that. It's going to hold the air pretty well, but if you want a smooth finish whenever you work on a call, you can fill these voids with super glue to give it a perfectly smooth finish whenever you're ready to apply your CA finish on top of that. I'm not going to do a CA finish, but I am going to use the super glue and the accelerator to fill in any voids like that I find whenever we turn the call. The next thing is the epoxy. As I mentioned before, I'm not sure that's going to be enough for all the laminations that we have to work with. I've got some other backup epoxy, but we'll definitely be using that. So on to the planning stage for the design. The first thing I'm going to start with is the band, and the band's going to consist of this black acrylic material. I'm going to use the white spacer material. I know it's hard to see. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use one section off the end of this green piece. And what I'm going for here, the band of the call is going to be almost completely black on the acrylic here. I'm right through the center of it. We'll have this green burl color running through the center. So we've got this. Inside of this, I'm going to do a segmented lamination with this white material. So you'll see from after the call is turned, you'll see white in between the green areas in the center of this band. Between the black, which is what they call coal mine, between the black and this piece, I'm going to do another thin layer of aluminum. And this will give the effect of some type of inlay or Aztec design, however you want to look at it. That's what we're going to be working with here. Is this will be black. These hash marks here going across will be the green dyed material. The dark colored in areas is the white spacer material, and then these areas going across here are going to be aluminum, so you'll have a shiny kind of metallic look to it, and that will be the entire band. I'll make this separate from the call, and then I will bore this and laminate it onto the barrel of the call. The next design aspect of this call is going to be the barrel. I'll talk about the barrel and then we'll talk about the insert. The basis of the barrel is going to be this piece of Burmese blackwood that I mentioned.
So, this being the band area of the call, everything else, I'm just going to draw. So the band area has already been discussed.
But this piece will actually travel the entire distance of the barrel. So there'll be what we call a tenon inside of this part that the barrel will slide over and will laminate to. The Burmese blackwood will be cut down probably in this area to somewhere in this area, and everything in between is going to be this green material. So you'll see the Burmese blackwood here, and you'll see it here, and then there will be another tenon running through the inside of the call of Burmese blackwood that this piece is laminated over top of. And I'll do another video later on to do integral laminations and explain exactly how that works. A lot of people like to use this white material or a piece of aluminum or things like that in between these. It gives a little bit of contrast, and it also helps to cover up if you don't have everything at a perfect 90-degree angle whenever you do your laminations. That extra piece of material in there helps to take up some of the gaps. I'm not going to use anything here. I initially said I was going to use some aluminum to try and give it a little bit of contrast, but we're going to have aluminum and the white in the band. I want the rest of the call to flow with itself. I think the Burmese blackwood and the green is going to have enough contrast that we're going to leave these two areas with no spacers. It'll just be the wood butted up against the wood. I think I can get a good enough fit there to where there's not going to be any gaps or anything like that, and it will give it an interesting look, especially when we add the flutes going through here. to the barrel of the call. The insert's going to be similar to the barrel. This part will be the blackwood. It will have an inside tenon. May run all the way through the call, may not. Just depends how I decide to do it. This part will be Burmese blackwood. I should have been more specific. This is African blackwood. And that's this piece here. And then we will have a lamination inside in this area. Again, the hash marked area there is the green material. So that's green burl. Same as the barrel, there won't be any spacers in between the green burl and the Burmese blackwood. So the next step is going to be to come over to the drill press, and I've already got the drill press set up. I've just got a piece of metal in here to give me a right angle to where whenever I'm drilling blanks I can slide it up against this and I know that it's 90 degrees, it's not going to wobble back and forth. So I push everything against that and then I tighten this up and clamp it in the vise to where it will hold it still. This part's not really important right now as the pieces that we're working on, and I've got a piece under here that supports the drill bit as it goes through, and that helps in the fact that it won't tear out or won't bust out the backside of whatever you're drilling. Next step, we're going to go to the metal lathe. If you've got a wood lathe, you can do the same thing. You just mount this on your mandrel, turn everything round, and then you've got a round blank to work with as we move forward in the rest of the lamination. do is focus on how we're going to do the segmented laminations on this. So what I need to do is cut strips of this material into the same width as the green dyed piece that I'm going to be segmenting with. But before I do that, you have to rough up the surface a little bit to make sure the epoxy has something to grab hold of. As I mentioned before, I've never done any segmented laminations or anything, and this is definitely not the way most other guys do it, but hopefully it'll satisfy what I'm trying to get through with this call. So I've made a sled here. I didn't want to use a regular fence and try to hold this by hand, so I built a sled, cut out one section of it here to where this would fit inside of it, and I'm going to run this under the band or underneath the guides on the bandsaw, and I'm going to cut this in half. That'll give me an opportunity where I can then go back, laminate the white material in between it, turn it 90 degrees, cut it, laminate it, cut it, laminate it. I can do that, and then that'll give me the effect of the segmented turning. So I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but we're going to run it through the saw and see what happens. As you can see, it's not exactly perfectly center, but it should be close enough. We may be able to work with it. As is with most things, whenever you try something that you've never tried before, it doesn't always work out as you wanted it to. I tried to make this work, trim it back a little bit, cut a little bit off the other side and center it up, but you can see we no longer have a round hole in the middle, so this isn't going to work. Sometimes you just have to start over. So I went and made 2 more new ones. At the same time, I screwed up again and I cut this one a little bit too narrow. I went back and got this one. It's got a little more figure in it, so I'm happier with this anyway. This is going to be the one that I hope I can use, and I'm going to use this one to test the bandsaw again, just to make sure that we're perfectly center whenever we cut that through. So here's attempt number 2. So attempt number 2 has given us almost perfect cut in between. I think I'm going to go with that and go ahead and cut the larger one, and then we'll see what we can do with the laminations. So these are almost perfectly center. Now we need to work on the white piece to go in between it. So the next thing I'm going to do is just knock the burrs off of this where I cut it on the bandsaw. That'll make everything nice and smooth, and then we have to work on dressing these up to where they'll be ready to actually laminate. So now we're ready to laminate this white piece in between the two green pieces. As you can see, the idea with the bar clamp did not work. I moved to the squeeze clamp to hold everything in place. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and start on the barrel of the caul, and I'll cut the pieces and start rounding them out on the metal lathe. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut this in half, and then I can mount both ends onto the mandrel to cut it down to the right size. So now I've got two pieces with a 5/8 hole in the middle, a 3/4 inch tenon, and I want that to fit inside of the 3/4 inch hole. And this is how we're going to be able to laminate this piece on top of these two without losing any strength in the caul. the epoxy's set up for a little while, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in here with a sharp knife, and I'm going to trim this plastic off the outside, and then I'll cut this away on the inside with a Dremel. Or if I can get this smooth enough, I may go ahead and cut this again on the bandsaw to where we can laminate our next piece going through here. So now we have this ready. All we have to do is figure out how to get a 5/8 hole in the middle of it again, and then start turning down the sides to where we can laminate that between our acrylic band. First method of trying to get this drilled back to a 5/8 hole is I'm going to mount this in the lathe, try to put as light a pressure as possible on it to make sure it doesn't bust apart, and see if that'll work. I know this style bit is very unconventional for call making because it's a multi-angle drill bit, but what I really wanted to do is just go in here and scrape that plastic off on the inside. So if I can get this to work, we'll go back and true it up with an actual 5/8 drill bit. this is still at a 5/8, but whenever I slide this onto the barrel, I need this to be at least a 3/4, maybe a 7/8. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chuck and drill it to a 3/4, and then we'll go from there to see if we need to upsize it or not. Short of having another metal tip bit, I don't have a 3/4 inch Forstner, which is what I would normally use. So I'm going to go back in with a 3/4 inch bit like this, even though I'm not real excited about it. I think it'll work. And that's why I wasn't excited about it.